All right.
Hey.
That was a clunky ending on my part, I thought, but whatever.
I thought you did just fine. But how about that lady in those leggings?
The leggings. That's hysterical, man.
It really is.
God bless her.
What great pictures. Yeah, for humiliating herself like that.
Yeah, the sense of humor.
Just make fun of you. I love self-deprecating humor. I think it's
the best. Some of the best comedians. That's exactly what they do, is the self-deprecating humor. And I was just closing stuff up, and I saw this one article about this in Portland, of course. Did you see this? A video of this guy, a road rage thing goes on, and this kid pulls out a sword.
No.
And approaches, I could pull it up, approaches this guy, some big old hillbilly looking guy, who stands there as this kid pulls this sword back like he's gonna whack his head off, and he just stands there. You don't know what they're saying. The video is being taken by a third party that's in his car. You know what? I'm gonna just share at least these pictures here. And God, this is so Portland though. So I see your katana, I raise you. Moment road rage, driver pulls samurai sword out on a very cool motorist who eventually pulls out a rifle. So he gets out here. This guy winds up with his sword. This guy just standing there. So whatever he says,
doesn't seem concerned at all.
Right.
About,
he called his
His
bluff.
head chopped
he
off.
knew this stupid kid wasn't going to do it. Right. And so anyway, so whatever they say transpires. He goes back to the trunk of his car.
Calmly,
and pulls
it looks
out,
like.
Yes. Pulls out a rifle. And and so then that was the end of that situation. Now, I watched this video. I don't know where it went. Oh, but this is where I was seeing statistics on the number of police officers in cities comparably populated as Portland, such as Denver. Okay, yeah. Portland defunded all their police, and of course the city's just on fire all the time. Denver has 1,500 compared to Portland's almost 800.
Whoa.
DC has over 3,500 compared to Portland's 788.
That's jumping off the page for me, the Washington, DC one, because they're a 5 mile square.
Yeah, there you go. But the population is similar. Yeah, you're exactly right, though. And Seattle, of course, doesn't have that much many, and all the problems in Seattle. So Merle, it just bothers me, just the lack of common sense. It's like, okay, we got problems with violence, so let's defund the police because it's really their fault.
Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Did you see the New York situation where they've got a new mayor coming in that's talking? He was an ex-police chief, actually. He's proposing, and his agenda is actually to put these anti-crime forces back together that were defunded, and Black Lives Matter came out and said that there would be riots and bloodshed.
Yes.
How are they not labeled a terrorist organization by saying
agreed that? I just want to give the benefit of the doubt, because if you saw his whole speech about that, the co-founder of Black Lives Matter, he said we're not going to go back to stop and frisk times. And so I just wanted
I don't know that was what was being proposed.
That's where he was taking it, and so I understand that. I mean, if you're
stop
black,
and frisk is unconstitutional.
Exactly. So, and if you're black and you've been pulled over, knowing, and you're a law-abiding citizen, you're a professional, all of that, and you've been pulled over, and it's because you're black. That whole stop, you can be sensitive to this. I understand that. So there's both sides there, but I will say, Merle, that when you and I hear Black Lives Matter, we get our feathers ruffled, and for good reason.
And was he saying that rioting and bloodshed would be as a result of stop and frisk? Because what I had read was it was because of the anti-crime units, not stop and frisk.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how he said it. I don't know if he actually used the words bloodshed, but he said that there would be rioting.
That was a quote, actually.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so I mean, we'll have to get more information on this one, but they seem to not be afraid to threaten violence like this, and especially when we
We've
take a
seen
look
that
at
evidence.
a duly elected official that's trying to get something done. Let's face it, I wouldn't want to live in New York City right now.
Yeah.
That it seems like a very dangerous place to live, and when somebody is trying to actually do something about it for a change as an elected official, they get threatened, and I don't think that that's right. I think that that should be taken very seriously. And
Now,
we see what's happened. I just go back to my LA thing here, and we see what's happened here, that the people have been left without any kind of protection, and that encourages crime to just go off the chart. And that it just makes it an unsafe place for all of us to live, and it gives safe haven to criminals.
True. And we've seen the dissatisfaction, the turning on the Democratic Party here of recently with in Virginia electing the Republican governor, and something like that in New Jersey and someplace else as well. And I mean, that's going to happen. The Democrats are shooting themselves in the feet by far. But here's the thing. So we go back to the Republican Party, and, you know, it's back to that independent party. We need to make real changes.
Yeah,
real changes.
I agree with what you're saying. Hey, I got something I want to share with you. I want to share this because what I really feel like where Joe Biden really started to go downhill had everything to do with this Afghanistan thing and how the pullout happened.
Definitely.
And so hopefully this will play. This is from when Joe Biden was running in the 2008 campaign.
I think I saw this. I know I saw this.
This is about 40 seconds. Here we go.
How we end this war. And it makes a big difference to tell the American people the truth about what our options are in ending this war. If tomorrow the order goes out from I'm President of the United States, I issue an order, end the war today, begin to withdraw all American troops. It will take a year to get the American troops out. Do you hear me now? That's the truth. It will take a year to get them physically out. Now, if you leave all the equipment behind, you might be able to do it in 7 months. And you leave those billions of dollars of weapons behind, I promise they're going to be used against your grandchild and mine someday.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
How we end this war.
Yeah, I saw that too, yeah. What a difference something? 13 years makes, huh?
Well, and how does the truth change so rapidly when
is everything, like the borders? Oh, they were all about the borders, you know, back in Obama's day. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. No, because it became a partisan issue. And so
once again,
and it's just like this defunding the police in all these cities. No sense being made whatsoever, but because it's a political issue, this is how we're going to run with it. Makes no sense.
I hate to say it, like I keep beating this drum, but it's this partisan thing. It's us against them kind of thing. And now I got to change the truth in order to compete against these people. It should never be like that. And
you know what?
Here we're seeing it again. But this time it really came back to bite Joe Biden, because everybody sees that what he was saying in that video is absolutely the truth. We left billions of dollars. I mean, he knew what he was doing. He obviously couldn't have. Well, I guess he could have forgotten what he said back then. But
Merle, the drama of it, because he did his whole, I'm going to put my hands down and lean into this person's face and say, if we leave those weapons behind, you know they're going to be used on your grandkids or children or whatever.
Yeah. I hate the way that he does that. That's so dramatic,
melodramatic.
And he does this all the time now, where he leans in towards the microphone and he whispers into the microphone. It seems so weird.
It does.
Somebody's got to tell him to stop doing that, because I feel like kind of the freaky kind of, I got to get out of here kind of feeling, you know. But
I did there.
Yeah, I did too. I
Yeah.
didn't feel. Does anybody like that? That seems so disingenuous to do that
And
as
invading
well.
personal space. Yeah.
It seems so used car salesman kind of thing too. Like
Yes.
you're trying to sell something to me, and you get all in my face and say, you know, like it was during the campaign. It was you're a dog faced pony soldier. You got all in somebody's face and said that.
What a thing to say.
What the heck? What are you talking about?
Has
man?
that ever come out of your mouth before? I mean, you
and,
say
like,
that?
wait a second. And what happened to the? Oh, hey, Charlie.
Oh,
But yeah, how crazy is that?
Yeah.
That he said something like that, and
Yeah.
just how easily the truth can be changed. As if the fact is we talked about 1984 in the last
Yeah.
one. Winston worked for the Ministry of Truth. That was his job, and he worked for the Ministry of Truth. That everything's an oxymoron here because it was anything but the Ministry of Truth, but this was the news agency that was responsible for changing the news. If somebody like Joe Biden made that statement, then Winston's job would have been to go into the archives and delete that out of the internet so that we could never see that again. Fortunately, we're not exactly there yet, so we can still go back and see these things. And then we're just going to, and once that happens, we're just going to have to rely on our own memories. But interestingly, Winston would pull these articles out, and the old article, if you noticed in the movie, he would put it down this hole that was on his desk. That was actually called the memory hole. So it would be purged from memory. Is really what was happening right there. So thank God we still have the ability to show these things, but the time seems to be coming very quickly when we won't even be able to do that, Barry.
Yeah, another analogy I want to make back to 1984 is fear is more feared, is stronger than death. Then the thought of death. Back to these cities with the defunding the police. I would rather face these anarchists burning down, our businesses and all the mayhem that comes with it and potential death than, and it's all fueled by the propaganda. And even though it makes no sense, so it's all fear-based. Look, if you watch CNN or MSNBC, you're just getting pumped full of fear all day long,
Yes, absolutely. And it seems to me that that's really a form of terrorism in itself. I mean, terrorism survives. Terrorism is called terrorism because they're using fear to control you. Look, they blow people up, but they don't blow everybody up. They blow up people in order to control the rest of the people. And gosh, our news media has become this horrible thing. And I got to say,
I should have added Fox into that statement.
I'm absolutely adding Fox in there. I was actually going to come up with an example of this. I was watching a show and I'm trying to remember. It's the guy that's on the 5. I like him. He's the
Greg Jesse Waters.
Jesse Waters. Okay, I like the guy, but
a little arrogant.
I liked him a lot better when he was this kind of quirky guy that would come on to the other guy's show. I forgot they ousted him, but he would always have this. He'd always have these funny kind of skits where he'd be man out on the street and he would interview people, and it was kind of funny and everything. And he wore his shirt where the collar was up, and it would be like an Izod shirt or whatever. Now I screwed up my collar, but now he's like this kind of scary doom and gloom guy. And I was watching his show the other day, and he was talking about violence in schools. And so the whole time he's talking, he's got a video rolling on, it's like a 2-screen thing. And the video is showing clip after clip of violence that's happening in the schools. And I'm talking like people are knocking people out, like it just hideous videos. And it's rolling the whole time that he's talking, like violent act after violent act. And I was watching it with Anne Marie, and both of us were so upset just because of the video it was almost like pornography. It was so bad. And I had to turn the TV off because it was like, this is getting into my soul here.
Yeah.
And
it would me too.
Again, You don't have to show that kind of thing to make your point,
Right.
but they know what they're doing when they do this, and this is
Stoking fear.
somehow drawn to this, sort of like the accident at the side of the road. Everybody wants to see, is there blood? This draws people to them, and it's not about telling the truth. It's about ratings. It's about money. It's about power. Which is it's happening on like I said in the last show, each of these news stations have an agenda, and it's not necessarily to tell the truth.
It's clicks. It's to get clicks.
Right.
And fear is what does it. People, it's how we're wired. Our number one concern is to stay alive, to be safe. And so we want to identify the fear factors. So it's using our own biology against us. Yeah.
I want to kind of turn the corner a little bit here.
Go ahead.
What are the gas prices looking like in your neck of the woods?
Well, I'm sure half of what yours is, but they're continuing to rise. It's about $3.50 a gallon now. But inflation is, you mentioned like last week or the week before about groceries, and you had one bag of groceries as $100. Yeah, man, I am definitely I'm getting hit hard by the inflation. Yeah.
I want to share this with you. This is our she's the energy secretary.
Oh yeah.
I'm just gonna play this real quick. This is a gem, I think.
It is.
In Sturgis, Michigan, it is $2.89 a gallon. I guess that's better than in California. What is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America?
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Would that I had the magic wand on this. As you know, of course, oil is a global market. It is controlled by a cartel. That cartel is called OPEC, and they made a decision yesterday that they were not going to increase beyond what they were already planning.
So this is our energy secretary, and just the laugh that happened, it kind of goes
condescending
back to the Joe Biden thing where he got all in her face, and then this woman, she's our energy secretary, she does the Hillary Clinton laugh, very fake. But the whole thing is that we know that the XL pipeline was shut down, one of the first acts of the Joe Biden administration, to release our energy independence that we had for years, which actually drove down energy costs. We're all affected by this. This is like, we always hear about this Build Back Better plan and how only the rich are going to pay. All of us are paying. From top to bottom, we are all paying. And so it's such a lie that we're not going to pay. And then when you take a look at the attitude, they're laughing right in our faces about this. And so this is the crazy part about the whole thing, is that it appears that they're doing this whole thing on purpose. And so as we take a look at this right now, Barry, the talk is that they're going to shut down this pipeline, or they're talking about shutting down this Michigan pipeline. As we're talking now, Peter Ducey from Fox News cornered the press secretary, the substitute press secretary, or the assistant press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. She's in there because the other press secretary, it has COVID. By the way, she was vaccinated. She got COVID. Jen Psaki. She's just back now. But he asked, "Hey, let's see if I have the quote here." Ducey asked at the White House briefing why the administration is considering shutting down Line 5, and she said, "That is inaccurate. That is not right. Any reporting indicating that some decision has been made, again, is not accurate." And he says, "What's not accurate?" And she says, "Wanting to shut down Line 5." And he says that he asked whether the administration was studying this, the impact of whether the administration should shut it down. And she says, "Oh yes, we are." Anyhow, it's just a play on words.
Oh yeah.
The whole thing is that they're looking at shutting this down because of the environment and global warming. And so they're going to shut this thing down with total disregard for our economy, with total disregard for the fuel prices that are happening right now. And again, this is crushing to the general population. Go ahead.
Yeah, Sagar and Jetty did a really nice piece on that using that same video footage that you just showed. And he's like, Joe Biden, where are you? You know, you never hear from him anymore. He's always gone, but he should be acting on this right away. And her comment about not being able to do anything, that this is a worldwide economy cartel thing. He says, we have federal reserves of oil that in a crisis situation you can release into the market, which
that's right.
Yeah. And he said it, and in other things, he goes, everyone knows I'm not one to back Trump, to have his back or anything, but he would at least use Twitter as a bully pulpit and get everybody in line, starting to make things happen. When the president is calling you out in whatever role you're playing in this, you start to make a shift so that you don't look so bad. He really did. Got to say, I hated his whole Twitter reputation, but boy, did he make things happen. Straight from a social media platform.
He really did. And it's no wonder that he was shut down on the social media platforms. And that was a big win for the left. And, hey, the fact is that whether you like Trump or not, take a look at what the other side was doing right here. They were shutting down our freedom, and it wasn't. It was very convenient for them to demonize Trump and talk about what a bad guy he is. Yeah. But in the end, they weren't. Who cares if they were shutting down Trump? They were shutting us down. And now look at what we got. And it's interesting that we looked at the debates that were happening before the presidential election, and Joe Biden was being very careful not to talk about his agenda to drive up fuel prices by eliminating these pipelines and our ability to be energy independent. We hear in the news all the time now how they're begging OPEC. We just saw the video where OPEC is a cartel and they refuse to do this. So why should we be dependent on them? And here's another question, Barry, is if we're so concerned about the environment, well, how come we're not so concerned about the environment in these oil producing nations? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me if we're really that concerned about
all of this. It's just a show. You got to show something.
It really is. Well, on the back of that, we have this controversial Biden bank nominee making some pretty crazy claims right now. Saul Amarova. I probably butchered that. She's a law professor at Cornell University who graduated college in the USSR. She's the nominee for this whole thing that's happening right now. Let me see if I can pull up the video of her right now. This is she's talking about the oil industry here, and this is what she has to say. Let me share this in just a second. Let me get back to this. And
for certain troubled industries and firms that are in transitioning. And here what I'm thinking about is primarily coal industry and oil and gas industry. A lot of the smaller players in that industry are going to probably go bankrupt in short order. At least we want them to go bankrupt if we want to tackle climate change, right?
We want oil and gas companies to go bankrupt.
Basically, no, to become more of a monopoly is what I get out of that. The smaller ones. That is dumb.
But the whole thing is about climate change. So we want these oil and gas companies to go bankrupt. Okay, so what is that going to do? That's going to further drive up these costs, which really, what's the end game on driving up fuel costs? Well, that has not only an impact on your ability to go see grandma, It has a multiplicative impact on everything that we do regarding our lifestyle. The very first place that we're going to feel it is where we're already feeling it, is at the grocery stores.
Oh God, yeah.
If you like steak, like I like steak, it's become unaffordable.
Dude, I last week saw steaks at the supermarket over $40.
I saw
Steaks.
the same thing. Right. You can't afford it. If you've got a family, you've got a couple of kids and you want to have something good to eat, you're going to have a lot less of that. And, here's the other thing is that as these commodity prices go up and up and up, we make ourselves vulnerable to our enemies as well. Look, the dollar is becoming weaker and weaker. The fact is that the federal government has injected a bunch of money into our system by printing money. And when you print money, it's like you only have one piece of pie, right? And so if you cut the pie into, I'll give you more pieces out of that piece of pie. Well, you're not actually making the pie bigger. You're making the slices smaller. That's what happens when the federal government prints money. That's how inflation happens. Your dollar doesn't go as far. So we have this kind of thing happening. And here we just passed this $1.2 trillion package.
Bunch of
now.
nothing. Yeah.
And if you take a look at what's inside of that package, you're exactly right, Barry. This is a wealth redistribution plan. And here in California, what we see is that we've seen our share of wealth redistribution plans. They don't actually benefit the poor or middle class whatsoever.
No.
Here in
Back
California,
to that salt thing.
We saw billions actually, which was supposed to go to the public, which were scammed out of the public.
Sure.
Much of that money went to criminals, which who knows if they'll ever be held accountable. And then we don't really know where the rest of the money went. So you got to wonder why these people in government are always pushing these types of war on poverty types of incentives. It seems to me that they're the ones that have the houses in Lake Tahoe, the multi-million-dollar houses. They're the ones that are flying off into space and stuff. I mean, come on. We can see where the money's going here. It's going into their pockets.
But you got to dig. You got to dig for the information. Again, it's back to people like, because if you're watching mainstream media, here's what you know, is that we had this $6 trillion bill on the table that had all the stuff that we wanted, from climate revision to free college and all this other stuff that one by one got eliminated. Now, whose fault is that? Oh, it's the Republicans' fault, because they, everybody wouldn't play ball. And basically they kind of take turns being the bad guy. But so it's all put in there for show at the beginning. And by the time everything's stripped out, all you got is special interest stuff left.
Yeah.
Really fleeced. It's not even complicated. Do you understand this the SALT thing, the sales what is it, what does SALT stand for? Something of local taxes, state and local taxes.
That's right. Wait, I wanted to I wanted to finish off a point on this but I want to go to that, but this nominee for the banking, I just find it interesting that she went to school, had graduated from college in the USSR, and also she's Chinese. And she's got a Russian accent. All of this Trump colluding with the Russians, being friendly with Xi Jinping, and here you want this person to be in charge of our banks. Doesn't really add up to me.
No, it adds up to a whole bunch of scariness is what it does.
Absolutely. Okay, sorry about that. Let's go ahead with the SALT.
So I just have this much. I tried reading this whole big long article on it, and man, you start talking taxes in the in-depth part, it bores me to tears.
That's how they get you too.
It's a bunch of math.
So boring that they hide all the dangerous stuff in there, and nobody can follow it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I vaguely got out of it. okay, the most recent version of the House's bill would raise the cap from 10,000 to 80,000 of the state and local taxes, holding it at that level through 2030. The cap would then revert back to 10,000 for 2031, unless they redid the bill again. So what I got out of it was that instead of just taxing the more wealthy people over $1 million in income per household, it now gets back to the middle class, and really it's a big money grab to pay for all this other stuff. And as vague as I said all that, that's what I understood, is that basically they kept saying, this is how the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
Yeah, I have a hard time following this whole thing. One thing I know out here in California is that they passed some laws here, and it was during the Trump administration, where now I can't deduct my state income tax from my federal income tax. And that is a huge hit, especially here in California, because the state taxes are 11% or something like that. It's outrageous, and it's one of the highest tax plans here in the country. And so you got to take a look at, where is all this money going, really? And how is it that we couldn't afford any infrastructure and we had to pass a more than $1 trillion plan when we're paying through the nose right now already?
Yeah. It's just being siphoned off by the rich. And I mean, we talked about that Pareto principle. It's
80-20.
It's that. Yeah. Well, it went way past 80-20. And that's what I mean. It's peaked. So it's going to blow up. Something's got to happen.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, did you hear about this Project Veritas? Are you familiar with Project Veritas?
I know of it. Once you start telling me.
Project Veritas is an organization that they're very much like 60 Minutes used to be, where they'll sit down with someone they don't know they're being filmed and ask them a bunch of questions, and then they divulge information. It's pretty crazy stuff, but they were able to find out that, for instance, the Planned Parenthood was harvesting organs from abortions and selling those parts as well. That was big in the news a couple of years ago, and they got in trouble for that as well. But it turns out that they are a news agency. And the FBI was searched the home of the founder. His name is James O'Keefe. Just this past week, they raided his home. And there's an interesting story that's out there right now, because the premise for raiding his home had to do with Joe Biden's daughter's diary, which apparently was found in a place that she had vacated. She's saying it was stolen. We don't know all the facts regarding that whole thing, but apparently Project Veritas about a year ago was contacted saying, hey, there's some pretty crazy information inside of this diary. Would you like to have it? And they ended up getting it. News agencies do this all the time. And when they went through the diary, they decided that we can't corroborate any of this news. So they called the police and they gave the diary to the police. So
I don't know anything about this.
A year later, the FBI raids his home, and they take his cell phone, they take computers, they take all this information from him. But the fact is that they didn't actually report on the news, and they actually turned the diary in to the police,
which has disappeared, I'm sure.
Now it's not disappeared. The fact is that it's interesting. I guess my point is that it's interesting how the FBI is being used these days. This should have been a local police issue. Using the FBI to do this kind of thing when you've got the president's daughter being involved in this is it's a conflict of interest, actually. And we're seeing where the FBI seems to be weaponized on every front. We saw it during the Trump campaign with this whole Russian collusion, which now we're seeing from the Durham investigation has been a complete sham. The FBI is in the very middle of this whole thing, and now we have the sanctity of the press being invaded by the FBI as well. Again, very ominous to take a look at.
Yeah. FBI is all kinds of a mess, but what do you
tell you what, if the FBI showed up, I mean, you used to think, call the FBI and then you'd have safety. No, now it's more like, they're a secret police agency now.
Yeah. I would definitely think that I was getting the bamboozle on something. If FBI
Me too. I would not be happy about that.
Right.
I used to think it'd be cool to work for the FBI. Now I just think, no.
I have a friend that is applying. It's a very, very lengthy process. And I got called as a reference, and it was a very thorough screening. And I guess they call a lot of people to corroborate your life story. They do some digging.
Yeah,
you better
well,
be
they
squeaky
should.
Clean.
Yeah, they should. I mean, the type of work that they're supposed to be doing, you better be a very honest, straight edge kind of person. And
when you're at the lower rungs and you're just being told what to do, that's exactly what you got to be. But when you're up in the high end of the command, oh man, there's all kinds of obviously there's all kinds of manipulation going on there.
So my grandfather worked a lot with the FBI as the federal district attorney in Cleveland. And, he working on his story with a friend of mine, Richard Dana, who's out there in Cleveland. And you've met him before when we had that tribute to Merle McCurdy. He was the one that was running that whole thing. And so we've been, over the years, we've been talking back and forth about how Merle McCurdy was killed. And he sent me all these FBI investigation files that we have access to. A lot of it has been redacted, but very interesting to read through these files and see what the FBI was investigating and who they spoke with. All of this is recorded. Pretty interesting work that they do. And not so sure. I mean, really, if you look at history, the FBI has always had let's say, there's reason to be suspicious of the FBI going back many decades now.
As soon as you build a political structure, there's always reasons to be suspicious as soon as it goes up,
Absolutely.
People are everyone's corruptible. It seems to me everyone's corruptible.
It's interesting. In the last show, I was talking about bureaucracies and how they are really not a part of the constitutional system. And a reason for it is because they're not accountable. They're not elected. Right. They're nameless, faceless people we don't know. And when they do things, no one is ever accountable. Sometimes they'll pull somebody into Congress and they'll yell at them, and then nothing ever happens ever. And here's the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They're another bureaucracy. And they were, if you look at the history of how they were formed and really what they've been a part of over the many, many years. What was it? Hoover was pretty notorious. Herbert Hoover, who, by the way, Richard Dana suspects that he's the one that gave the order to put Merle McCurdy away. Very, very interesting. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just saying that. Take a look at what these guys can get away with. Even the Kennedy assassination, people have said that the FBI may have been involved in that. Probably. Maybe the CIA as well, another bureaucracy. So interesting stuff.
I mean,
yeah, where is this guy?
I was just thinking back to, I was telling you about Sager's little episode with calling out Biden and how he's not doing anything about the gas prices and all of that. And he also said, the supply chain problems and stuff. You got all those ships that are out there that can't come in. Why do you not put the Navy and or National Guard into action to help out in these regards? This is exactly the national emergency that they are there for. I thought that was a pretty good point.
I mean, it is an interesting point. The National Guard, I heard some rebuttal on the National Guard piece, which is that the National Guard can't be called out by the federal government. It has to be the governor of each state is responsible for that. So that's not in their jurisdiction. But of course, the Navy would be.
That's interesting that at the height of the immigration, the border problems a few months ago, Kristi Noem, I think I'm saying her last name right, from South Dakota. She's sharp. She's really sharp. She
really is.
She deployed her National Guard out to Texas. And it was like,
that. Yeah,
it's like, Biden, you won't do anything. I mean, we got to help. And still, I mean, there's still that ongoing problem. And where's Kamala Harris? I think she's in France. Isn't she in Paris?
Yeah, she's in Paris. And I apparently one of her missions was to make amends for that whole thing with the nuclear submarine deal that they cut France out of, and they took their ambassador out of the United States, which is a big deal. That doesn't happen. And I'm thinking, you really sent Kamala Harris to make amends for that? Because she seems to rub everyone the wrong way.
Yeah.
Her approval rating is like 28% right now. I've never even heard of anybody in that high of office having that low of a score. So it seems like a disaster to send her over there. But she went down to the border, right?
Yeah,
so
not
now
really.
It's fixed.
Not really. But so I hear that Pete Buttigieg is kind of being groomed to take that nomination because nobody wants Kamala. In the next election, Biden is going to be dead by then if he's not already. And Kamala, they're not going to put her out there. So it seems like that's what they're kind of grooming Pete Buttigieg for. And apparently he's got a documentary of some sort out on Netflix. I think it's Netflix. And yeah, it's said to actually not paint him in such a great light because he's known to be kind of robotic. And there's footage of his partner saying to him, like, look, you got to show emotion here, and it just never comes across. So there's that. But, I was thinking, I think Kristi Noem would be a hell of a presidential candidate for the Republican Party.
Boy, she is super sharp, and I mean,
lights are on, everyone's home.
Absolutely,
she cuts right
quick.
through the crap.
Yeah, she is. She's a very sharp person, and I love what she's done for her state. And you take a look at how she's handled the coronavirus situation, and the numbers that come out of there regarding per capita sicknesses and everything. They were able to do a great job without all of the infringement of our freedoms. So, you got to take a look at that. But this doesn't seem to be a common sense kind of environment that we live in. And do you think that it's going to go away?
I have no idea.
The virus?
I have no idea, because every time you hear something that contradicts it. I don't know. I don't know what to think about vaccine mandates. I don't know what to think about these companies that are being mandated that are over 100 people. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know what to make of any of that. I think that there's a lot of personal information that is being overlooked, has to be overlooked in order to mandate that stuff. And I'm not cool with any of that, but I am serious that we have to watch. Unfortunately, we have to watch how hard in the paint we go on some stuff.
Yeah. Well, I understand what you're saying, and that's too bad, because we talked about 1984 earlier, and we're definitely dealing with that type of situation. We do have some other stuff in the news here today about. Did you see the Veterans Day situation that Joe Biden found himself in, where he was talking about Satchel Paige?
No.
Remember, Satchel Paige was the first American League black person to play. Of course, everyone knows Jackie Robinson, but Satchel Paige was a pitcher, and he came from the Negro Baseball League. That's what it was called. But Joe Biden screwed that up, and he referred to Satchel Paige as the great Negro at the time. Everybody's coming down on him on that whole thing. And I just think, just come on, man, read the script.
I know this guy's only got like 2 cylinders left firing, and it's just a gaff left and right.
He's a gaff machine is really what it comes down to.
He's got this little committee of handlers that, in a committee, you can never get people to agree on stuff. So it's hard to get anything done, especially done right. That's clearly what's happening with him. They thought they could throw him out there as a figurehead and they would run things behind the scene, but they're not doing anything, and nothing right. I mean, we just discussed all of that.
Yeah. Well,
you can't get anything done.
The great Negro. I hope one day I get called that. Anyway, okay, so yesterday was Veterans Day, big day. A lot of people had the day off. I've never had Veterans Day off, by the way, but I guess it's a lot of people. But
you don't work for the government. I mean, they get everything off.
But it's such an interesting thing. It's commemorating actually the end of World War I, which the treaty was signed on the 11th day of the 11th month in the 11th hour. I just think that's kind of cool. Here's CNN, though, putting out a tweet regarding this and honoring the troops. They say, we thank soldiers for their service because they devote themselves to protecting our freedoms, and we should. But we should also thank the media for the same reason, especially when the stakes have never been higher. I mean, talk about toot. I mean, really? I mean, I just think, wow, that is really... you're comparing yourselves to the soldiers on Veterans Day. Interesting. Too bad.
No. I don't have anything else. I think that we probably should close this up.
All right, let's do that. This has always been a pleasure and so much fun. I especially enjoyed the 1984 talk and dovetailing that into what George Washington said about the party system. I
think is very interesting how it just kept coming back full circle.
All these news articles that we brought up together really encapsulate the main ideas of what's happened in 1984. And I think the most the big thing that came out of my reading of 1984 was, oh my God, this is happening right now. And like I said in the last time that we spoke, is that when I read it the first time, I think it was in 1983. I thought, wow, that would be terrible if something like that that's happening in Russia. Oh, those poor people. But now it's happening worldwide now, not just here. It's worldwide.
Yeah, I don't think I said it, but I remember thinking, as I was watching that, especially towards the end, I was thinking, this looks like it was written and produced after the Yemeni Park stuff. Like they watched this, they listened to her and went, geez, and then made this movie. Because it totally illustrated that what's going on in North Korea and how we're going down that same road.
It really is. And when you look at just George Orwell, and that's his pen name. His real name was Eric Blair was his real name.
I didn't know that. That's a cool name.
Yeah. But why? It's interesting how everyone's got to change his name. He had some other things he wanted to be called, but they ended up with George Orwell. George Orwell was a communist himself and fought in the Spanish Civil War on the communist side. Remember, it was the communists versus the fascists. This was shortly before World War II, and Hitler, of course, was lending all of his energy. This is where the Blitzkrieg actually was originated, and they were practicing for the big game. This was sort of a scrimmage game for Hitler. Of course, the fascists won that whole thing. George Orwell was actually shot through the neck, almost died, was very unhealthy from that point on, but he was an anti-Stalinist as a communist, and lived the rest of his life. He died at age 49, lived the rest of his life really being surveilled by his own government in the UK, because we were allies with Russia at that time, and died at age 49 of tuberculosis. He wrote that book while he was dying of tuberculosis.
I wonder. So he thought his kind of communism was the good kind of communism.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Wow.
And in fact, in the Spanish Civil War, there were two factions in the communist army that were actually ended up warring against each other, which of course weakened them, and that allowed them to be defeated in the Spanish Civil War. So very interesting. He did think that he had the right form of communism, and the Orwellian society that he paints in 1984 was really the Stalinist version that he was so against.
Wow, man, that's a slippery slope. I didn't
Big time.
Yeah, boy. All right. Hey, I gotta kill this dog right now. And all right,
He's
dude.
kidding, folks.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Call PETA. All right, buddy. I will talk to you later. Have a good weekend. All right.
You too,
Love
Barry.
you, bud. All right.
Bye.